Whoa, we're official.
We are. Do you see me? I see you? Whiteboard in all its glory.
I could see you loud and clear. I gotta love the whiteboard. I should have wrote like a funny note here.
It's part of every email I get from you. I feel like the whiteboard is movable. You got many of them based on how many times I get.
Oh yeah, I got one right here too.
Yes, it's used in your
My
LinkedIn
wife,
messaging. I got all the friends have seen those too.
yeah. My wife's like, "Why do you have so many whiteboards?" I'm like, "I don't know.
It's part
Why
of your
don't
charm.
you?"
Because I feel like my message and my emails are strong. The picture, we're feeling good about it. I was never a big whiteboarder. I don't have great handwriting.
Oh yeah.
Yours, yeah. I don't know if yours
I
is worthy of put your handwriting's pretty interesting as well.
my handwriting is not good. It's always interesting seeing like the background of people's like things. Like what I have here is like I bought this like $30 drone off of Amazon. So anytime I'm in a meeting or I'm just like I don't want to like I don't know. I'm like maybe it's like a lot. I'm just like fly it around and I'll just be listening in. It really is like probably the one of the best parts of my day. And my cats love to swat it down.
Oh, very
Yeah.
unique. Their
Oh yeah. We'll
space,
let
as we're waiting for everybody to come in, Will, does your space impact your vibes and your calling? Does it impact, like, do you need a clean space? No, I can call from the coffee shop. We saw you with your CEO the other day, but like, do you need a space that you call? Like, everybody's got, like, I want this, this, and this in order. You're like, no, don't care. I'll call walking, I'll call to the
mm,
dishes. Do you need a space or not really?
I not really. Like I've like legitimately made cold calls like from the bathroom. Like not like just like in the bathroom generally. I was happened to be walking through the bathroom when I picked up the phone. I've made cold calls from a coffee shop, from my car. I don't think it matters, you know. What about you?
Well, first, I will comment for a minute. This is the best part. I know people are trickling in, but if you look at is that your is that someone else coming in? Thumbs up. No, I think when people are trickling in, if you look at something, he's kind of going viral right now. His name is Gary Brecka, kind of into science and health, but they talk about laws of attraction, and one of the most attractive energies or qualities they say, like off the Richter chart, like super, is authenticity. So when someone is authentic, that comes in sales, that's part of anything SDR, but this is part of your charm, Will. You are super authentic. There's no filter, there's no buffer. You were on a stage, you're like, hey everyone, I just make a phone call in the bathroom. No big deal over here. And that is part of your charm and why you're so good at your job. But you crack me up, so I am just commenting. No, I'm
I'm
not. I don't need a special
I'm
space. I don't need a special space.
yeah, I'm blushing here. Well, I know we're in a few minutes here, so I know that we've got a few people that have rolled in. Welcome everyone. Would love to get a quick poll of who's actually here today, along with just a quick icebreaker. If you guys could throw in the chat, like what was actually your first job? And just so Sadie can understand a little bit who's in the audience to tailor our questions, like what are some of your job titles? And then Sadie, I'll answer that question. What was actually your first job?
We'll put the job titles, and then are we asking me my first job out of the gates?
Yes.
Yes, but I will say there, I can see some of the messages already in chat, and I see some of my old current. I think he was promoted senior already in the message in chat. So just let you know, I see you, and thank you all for joining the webinar. Some of the old SDRs I used to work with. So definitely Will, and some people think this is pretty interesting. My first job, and of course, you have stuff in high school, whenever, but I would say one of my first jobs that's unique was I was a bus driver for my job in college. So let's talk about this. It's why. Why was I a bus driver? To be honest, I needed the time. Your resident assistant was your most highest paid job on campus. This was the second highest paying job on campus. So if you, the bus driver for back and forth, I had two campuses where I went to college. And so I still have it to this day. My Class B license, I could drive a 75-person Metro Transit bus if I had to. Still on the license.
Wow, we got to get you over to the Dreamforce.
Did you go? Were you there? Did you go to Dreamforce? No.
I did not. I did not. I had two little kiddos to take care of. My first job was I used to work at Pizza Hut, and so I was out there wheeling dealing pizzas. Now I'm wheeling dealing demos. So that's a pretty cool to see the translations between life. But I want to cover some housekeeping here. Like everyone in the chat, feel free to throw your questions or stories in there so that we can bring them in. I actually have our head of growth here, and she'll be kind of filtering the questions to make sure we get them answered. We'll have about 30 minutes of conversations between Sadie and I, and we'll actually leave the last bit where you can ask her any question, no limit to the things you can ask, and we'll send out the recording after the fact. Really excited to introduce our guest Sadie here today. She's the VP of Sales Ep over at Anaplan, and someone I've really look up to, and someone I've cold called a few times myself. And there's a funny story behind that, me being roasted, but I won't get into it. What I find really impressive is that she's hired over 300 SDRs and promoted over 30 of them, and is way over plan, and it's only September. I personally believe she's successful because she has a relentless focus on what she does and what she does really well, and not only of developing her own skills, but the ones of the people she leads. Sadie, I'll kick it off to you. Feel free to add anything I missed there about yourself and your role at Anaplan and what you've built there before we hop into the convo.
For sure. So the current team, so our VP of Sales Development over here at Anaplan. I've been with Anaplan for about 2.5 years, and I live in Minnesota. So if that puts in helps anybody, Anaplan's currently headquarters in Miami. And the team itself, so we've got roughly we're looking at around 15 actually in Minnesota, but globally, there's around getting close to 35 SDRs with leaders, 40 in the US. We have a whole team in EMEA. We're looking close to 30 over there. And then a whole APAC region team with Australia and Japan, with Singapore and Indonesia and India. All that team rolls up to me here at Anaplan. And some of the questions of, hey, just how did I get into it? I started as an SDR, 2010, as an SDR, doing the process and going all the way through and up, asking some hard questions about, do I want to do cold calling too? It has to happen every time in their moment. And here we are right back at it for Anaplan, and super excited to be here.
I love it. So now, obviously that you've seen this since 2010, prospecting has changed a bit over the past 10 to 15 and even over the past 2 years. What do you feel like are the most important skills are for SDRs when you're hiring?
Well, I'll take a step back. I think this is one of the things like as a framework, and this is where the whole foundation of my team, the whole foundation that we rock. And I will be honest, I see some of the people here in the room, like I got this framework when I was at Concur as an SDR, moving into management. And gosh, well, I haven't told you this story, but I remember when I was a first-time leader, and you go into your first-time leading, your training, your development, and there was a woman who like brought up this screen, and she said something. She said, 93% of leaders are bad at developing their teams. And for some reason, I took it to heart. So back in 2012, I'm like, that's not going to be me. And so we brought up this situational leadership was the framework that was kind of given to me. You see a book here by Paul Hersey, but Ken Blanchard was also part of it. And situational leadership, it's a whole language. It's about competencies. It's about commitment. It's about how you support and direct your team, and it helps quantify skill development. And that helps everybody when it comes to developing your team. And I know we'll get into that, but if you think about that, it's also part of who you hire and how you hire. And last but not least, with situational leadership, you don't actually have to have the title of a manager, a leader, to work with someone to do it. And so this is that framework when you talk about hiring and that competency framework. So if I'm hiring and I'm looking for certain competencies, now I have a whole way to quantify it in the interview process, in how we go forward, how we develop. It's definitely a competency framework that you align to your whole process. What's beautiful for me and the leaders on my team is that it helps that conversation move forward, and it's everybody's talking that same language. And I think this is one of the big things about people, leaders, teams, and I think you can appreciate this too, is that sometimes you talk to everybody, you're married, you have 2 kids. We all got to agree that sometimes talking with someone, you're looking at the same thing, you're talking about the same thing, and you have no idea where that person's coming from, and you don't know what they're talking about, what they see, right? So situational leadership for me, hiring, development, coaching, development is all about a language of, are you on the same page to go where you want to get the outcome? So does that ring a bell to you? Like, Will, like thinking about it out loud, like think of how many times you had a discussion, and it kind of goes awry. It's
Hmm.
probably due to a miscommunication or misalignment. And now you are farther 2 steps back than when you started. Does that make sense, that land?
That resonates completely. I think it would be cool if I could see an example of that.
Ooh, well, I think this is the fun part. So, I have a screen for you that I think about. Hey, we're looking at something in front of us. And this is how I explain it to my team too, to do it in real life. So, everybody in the chat, I'm sure some of you have seen this picture before. It's not uncommon. So, before we go, if anybody wants to throw in the chat, who sees an old woman and who sees a young woman? And I've done this, so if anybody's on my team in the call, don't be answering it. So I see some people. I've got a young lady out of the gates, Julie, Ryan, young, ooh, old from the beginning. Oh, in the beginning. Okay. Will sees old. Okay. Now the bigger question. I'm looking at the same screen, so are all of you. Is there anybody in the chat, and even for yourself, Will sees the old lady, who doesn't see the opposite? Like Will said, I'll just do it with Will today. Will, do you see the young lady?
I don't.
Okay, and I'm looking at the chat. Yes, I'm like, Julie, thank you. You don't see the old. Joe, does I see both? A lot of people see both. I don't see the old. Perfect. Julian, let's do this in real time. Check out the next slide, everyone. Like, this is how the language situational leadership works. From the beginning, you can see the young lady. She's looking over her back, right? And then in the middle, you're kind of like, hey, what's going on? It's still the same picture. And all of a sudden you see the highlighted here of the old lady. Normally when I literally use this picture when I do a training to my teams on situational leadership to get the connection, but I'm loving it in the chat. People, this is where if we are together, development, SDR leadership, we all have to talk the same language and you have to start from the same point. And if you're not seeing the same thing in a picture, it really, really doesn't work to develop, coach, and hire people. And so what I do here is like when in the real time is when all of a sudden you're like, hey, oh my gosh, I see it. You see people's aha moments. And that is what leadership's about. That's what SDR leadership is about, is that you are teaching people that have never seen this before. Think about all the leaders in the call. Think about SDRs, your first time, career changers, entry, early development. This is that first time they're seeing a different perspective, a different world. And I find trying this framework, situational framework, sets the tone to how to get people on board fast and furious when it comes to learning and seeing other people's perspective. So that's me. That's hiring. That's development. That's the framework.
Mm-hmm. And so let's actually talk about growing your team skills. So with a team of 38 plus, you really need to understand how to do things at scale globally. Like, how are you thinking about scaling skill development globally?
And you talked a little bit about prospecting and skill development. There's so many skills as part of sales. That's not a hidden secret. Everybody knows that. And there's so many of them: negotiating, presentation skills, written communication. How do you show up professionally? Oh, how about management of systems? Champify's on here, but I think we all, Salesforce, HubSpot, Marketo, Demandbase, Sixth Sense. There's so many tools in the world of sales development as well. You really got to break down and quantify that skill development. Where are you and where do you want to go?
Mm-hmm. And how are you breaking down skill development like that?
We bring it right back to situational leadership. There's 4 levels, D1 through D4. And hey, let's pick on Will. This is more fun for me. I don't know if everybody's out listening on the call, but it's more fun for me. Is that let's pick on Will. Will's rifting calls. He's know where it's at. But we can all say that Will's super strength might not be professionalism. Fair? Fair. Okay.
To be fair.
To be fair. But here's the real question. Me and Will are going to do this a little bit in real time. You want to quantify it. Will's professional. Does he need it to excel? I don't know. We don't know, right? So the real question is, does Will want to? Does Will want to be committed to doing something professional? That's a very different starting point than Will's like, hey, I think I'm pretty great. I'm rifting calls. I can meet anybody. I can cold call anybody. I'm good. great. Then I'm not going to develop Will on something he doesn't think he should get better at. And so that framework starts with Will's going to tell me, hey, professionalism, I'm probably at a D1. I need a lot of help, but I'm excited. And then if Will's like, no, I'm good. I'm great at professionalism. I can turn it on when I want to. I'd say D4, no, I'm not going to coach and develop you on that. That's that baseline. That's that framework.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to understand the landscape a little bit here. Like how do you even start with skill development? Like let's say, as an example, I have a rep who's stuck. Like how do you even go about that in both cases?
Let's do a normal one. Let's give a normal one that I think most people are stuck in, but I would say this is probably the biggest in sales development is time management, right? Time management is hard. It is not something that people just innately have. You either have a skill set and you got to learn it. So let's just take it from the top. Time management's hard. So then I need to break this down into tasks or goals. So as an SDR, everybody's in the call. It's not crazy. There's a task I have. I need to increase call time during 1 to 3 p.m. Not unheard of. I got to get more done with less time. So how do I break that down? As the leader, I'm going to understand first column, where's everybody at? If you're a D1, you don't know what you're doing, but you're pretty excited. Okay, D2, I don't want to do this and I don't know what I'm doing. D3, I've done it before, but I might need some help. And D4, I know what I'm doing. I got this. I probably could help someone else and mentor, right? This is just a high level time management competency, but we know there's multiple goals and tasks to get better at time management. And if you follow yourself along here in the framework, on the right-hand side, if this was the task we were doing, ultimately as a leader, I have to say, okay, Will doesn't know what he's doing, but he's excited. I'm going to give him a lot of direction and a lot of support. Okay, he doesn't really like what he's going to do and he doesn't want to do it. Oh, that's a different conversation as a leader. And now I have to support differently. I'm probably still going to say we're going to do the blitz between 1 and 3. And for 3 and 4, you're excited to do it. I'm just going to listen. I'm going to help you, but I'm not going to make the call. You're going to figure it out. I trust you. You're going to do great during this 1 to 3 blitz and we're moving forward. Here's the landscape you talked about. So yes, in front of us, we have a framework. I'm sure someone read it. I'm hoping you're putting it two together, but here's what's unique about the leadership side. You have to do this in rocket speed. You have to ask questions to understand where's that person at. You have to be able to identify quickly. Let's just say Will's at the top. He really doesn't know what to do, but he really likes it. I need to go into a mode of, oh, he needs lots of direction and lots of support. That has to happen at rocket speed for, I think, leaders to do great and to develop SDRs for what they need.
Mm-hmm.
Does
And
that land
I guess I would.
You're landing.
It's landing very well. I would say I would be curious, like what does an actual enablement session for that look like? Let's say like, hey, maybe I am bad at time management. Like what would that cadence of us actually developing that skill look like?
So, for example, this is just one task. If you want to take the screen off and we can talk, this is just one task of many. I don't think it's helpful. Enablement sessions, oh gosh, I'm sure there's some enablement people on the call. I don't think it's helpful in this day and age with this generation to be like, I'm gonna lock Will in a room for 2 hours and I'm gonna make him focus hard. I don't actually think that works anymore. It's just people's attention spans are less. So for example, on time management, I'm probably going to do 5 different tasks with you all week that are less than 30 minutes. And we're going to go sprint for you to create a habit. Or I'm going to have an hour meeting like this, and we're going to put you in 4 different breakout rooms. So you're paying attention that whole hour. So enabling is about how people can actually consume the information. And I think for some of the leaders here on the call, think about how much information SDRs are getting from their AEs, from their product, from their marketing, do this, do that. And then as a leader, you need to navigate in there. Think about those sprint moments and actually enabling them effectively to get a behavior change you want. I think this is where we all struggle. It's actually, I could tell you all day, go do it this way, but if you don't do it, it doesn't really matter. And if you don't get the outcome, it doesn't really matter.
Wow. We actually have some really good questions coming in from the chat here. How do you do some of those 30-minute coaching sessions like at scale? I can imagine as a leader, it's probably really hard to do that, especially with a limited calendar. Are there multiple people doing this, or do you group by level, or?
All of the above. I usually like when we've done breakout rooms by level because typically in situational leadership, right? It's the framework of everything. You are supposed to coach or deliver the message to the lowest person in the room. So even if you have a D4 in the room on something and a D1, you are still supposed to coach the D1 to bring everybody along and help that person who's good at it. So for sure, leveling, time, one to many. And if I'm on a call, I would say as a leader, be good with your technology. I'm very concise on when we have 80 people on a call, cameras on, I'm here, but the deck is over here. I'm looking at the people for body language, see if it actually resonates. I'm going to ask questions mid if I think it's boring or drags on, right? So it's really about that moment. And then the follow-up, follow through. I think a lot of people enablement one and done. And I think SDR leaders are, I like to call them CEOs or COROs, and they're both. Chief Execution Officers, because I feel like SDRs and SDR leaders have to execute, or Chief Reminding Officer. You need to tell something at least 6, 7 times to make it land. That's real life. That's in leadership. That is all how we're functioning these days. So CROs and CEOs are the SDR world for me.
That is great feedback there. It's kind of like with SDRs, it always takes like 14 touches to get a meeting. Sometimes as leaders, it takes 7 to 8 touches to get a response from a rep internally. Yes, and what I see, like a lot of people are trying to develop their skills to get somewhere within the org, whether it's, hey, I want to go AE, or maybe I want to become a manager, or maybe it might not even be for me. Like when do you decide it's time to promote someone based off of their own internal skill development?
This is the good and the tough about being in the SDR world, right? I say this, and this is not to offend anyone, but I say it with love. Most people do not decide to be an SDR for life. I don't think most people are going to retire with me. Statistically saying, probably not. If they want to, I'm excited, but I don't think it's going to happen, right? And so promoting someone, there are 3 pieces of that process. And I think myself and the SDR, or all like getting to a manager, are controlled by those people, but there's one that isn't. So the first that you can control, am I ready as the individual person who wants the promotion? Are you ready? Have you quantified that, which is back to the framework? Are you great at time management? Are you great at written communication? Are you great at negotiating? What have you done to get better at those skills? 2, do we, the people in the room, believe you're ready? So there's a group consensus. Did you see the old lady? Did I see the young lady? Communication. Are we all on the same page that you're ready? And there's one piece we can't control, is the actual availability of the spot. So the availability, as well as, are you the right candidate? I can't control that, and the person who wants the promotion can't control that. So I look at this a little bit differently. When I decide the promotion, it's really about, can I do everything while someone's with us to develop the skill set to get where they want to go? It isn't about, hey, I want to be an SDR manager in 2 years. What do I do about it? You could be ready at 2 years, but the role's not open until 3. That full year, there's going to be probably some tough feelings, tough conversations. Mm-hmm. How are we doing? And so my job in that role is saying, hey, where are we at? What can we do about it? And what do you want to do about it? And I think that's the balance. And I'm super honest with all teams. I think transparency is a big one about promotions. I think about the process of people want to know. But there's that hard moment that anybody who wants a job doesn't get it. There's a tough feeling there. And I'm ready. I've been ready, and there's no role open. Then hard choices have to happen. Do you want to stay with the company? Do you want to stay in that and wait it out? Do you want to try again? Do you want to go somewhere else? And what I care, and I hope my leaders on my team care about, and I've worked with others, I care more that you're leaving better than when you came, so that you're feeling like you got impact for your outcomes in your life.
Yeah, no, I know we were talking about this yesterday, but a lot of the times when people just try to keep SDRs in their spot, it doesn't end up working well. But when you're actually onto them where they can go or where they want to be, it ends up keeping them for longer. We have a really good question from Josh Fisher. Like, what does an ideal week actually look for a solid SDR team? Like, how many trainings and meetings are you guys running, and like what do call blitzes look like?
This is actually dependent on what department, segment, product you're selling. It all varies. So one of those things with an ideal week is you're constantly learning. You should be constantly learning. So if a team has it, when I think if you're thinking about how to like get in trainings and meetings, I genuinely believe it's about time management and you can do what you need to do. Here's what I don't like on my team. I'll maybe say what I don't do because I think it's crazy language, but I think a lot of people fall into it. I think it's crazy to say out loud, hey, it's the last week of the quarter. I'm closing it out. It's too big of a week. I got to hustle. That to me seems bad planning. No, if I want to put a training at the last week of the month or the quarter, that's because we have the talent, the execution up to that. It's kind of, I feel like people love the buzzer beater. I call sales like the buzzer beater. Everybody loves that last half court shot, the home run in the ninth. And I'm like, hey, that's great. But I don't want to do that every month or every quarter. I'd rather have the plan. I want to talk about what we did in the second inning. I want to talk about the free throw at the half. Like those are the types of decisions and discussions I want to have. While I love a good buzzer beater, but I don't want to do that every day, and I don't want to do that every month. And so my thoughts are trainings, meetings, how many call blitzes are based on the needs of the business, based on that timing, seasonality. As you know, when you call, who you call in based on their roles, it all interacts with everything and cognizant. And also don't make up, not excuses, but don't make up the thought of like, oh gosh, we can't bother them. No, we're all adults. We're 8 hours a day plus. We can do a training if it's the most needed time and it's the best time. Good
That's
question.
Great. I think what a lot of people are wondering in this when learning about D1 to D4 in terms of some of the enablement sessions is like where do I go from here? So like let's pretend I'm an SDR where should I or anyone on this call, whether it's an IC or a manager, actually get started and put this into practice tomorrow or Monday?
There you go. First, read the book if you want to. That's a good step. But if you don't read the book, go get the Cliff Notes. With all the AI technology out there, I'm sure you could get a summary pretty quickly, right? But if you had to start tomorrow, I think, and Will used this language with me when we were talking about this, but it really resonated. Quantify what you're looking for and quantify where you are. Because this is one of those things where I think people are like, that's so cool. It's no different than you're like, I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to run a marathon next week. Okay, I can't. So what do I got to do? What's the proper planning? And am I really ready? So you think about approaching a promotion, a career, thing like that, is that it needs a little bit of time. It's not, I just woke up and now I'm really excited. See, part of D1 through D4, and we talk about it, is commitment. Commitment varies. So let's go back to the beginning where I said, hey, Will, professionalism, you want to get great at it, but tomorrow you don't. Well, my conversation with you tomorrow based on your commitment is going to be very different than today based on how you feel, right? And so if you think about the commitment and the timing and, hey, it's the holiday season, I'm going to put it on the back burner, just being realistic of where you're at, and that will help you put the blocks in place. Quantify where you're at, quantify the commitment you have to change it, and then you roll.
What do you feel like the biggest mistakes are and that you've seen managers and ICs make when it comes to their own career development?
Well, let's go with biggest mistakes. I've learned from so many of them, and I think that's a piece of it, is expect mistakes and learn from them. When maybe I think stop trying to avoid them. I think that people rush because they don't want to feel silly. They don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to disappoint someone. And the reality is you will. So instead of looking at it like avoid, actually embrace that I'm probably going to make a mistake. So I usually say I'm pretty confident, but I'm confident I don't know everything. I'm confident I'm going to make a mistake, but I'm confident I'm going to figure it out. Right. And so when you're that open and that set up to say, okay, how do I do this better? You're already off to the races. Think about, you said attrition. SDR leaders on the call, everybody in SDR leadership and in sales thinks about attrition. In my world, I'm like, wait, why am I trying to avoid this? It's inevitable. You're not going to retire to me. So why don't I build a plan that supports it and works a timeline that actually sets everybody up for success? So I think that is a very different approach. And so I would just encourage, actually embrace the mistake, learn from it, and roll. I think SDRs are so used to rejection. It's same. You heard no. I expect you still to pick up the phone for the next call. So
Yeah,
we're rolling. What'd you learn? And keep rolling.
that's great. It's kind of like being a rock down a hill. You just got to keep rolling no matter what bump you hit, you know? I know that we are coming up here on 30 minutes. I've been seeing a lot of really good questions in the audience, so we're actually going to open up the floor. Feel free to throw any question in the chat, and then Sadie will be sure to answer it. Chris actually had a really good question. In your opinion, like, what is the ideal SDR candidate when hiring, especially when it comes to tangibles and intangibles?
Tangibles, I think you have to really decide hard skills, hard competencies, time management, management systems. But when you're hiring, be really cognizant of the three that you know are super hard to work on. So we look at three of them is perseverance. People love the buzzword grit. We're going to go perseverance. Composure. Composure, I think when people get rattled, what's composure like?
Mm.
And then, as we all know in this world, change. SDRs change a lot. They change what they're going after. They change what marketing they're using. They change who the ICP is. They change so much. So in the interview, I'm looking for those three things. And so I like this. Let me give you an example. Perseverance. Okay. I'm not going to ask Will in an interview, hey, Will, tell me the time you persevered. Okay. What I am going to do is in a call with Will, I'm going to say, hey, Will, tell me about a time you went through something really hard and how'd you get through it? And I want to look with the answer I'm looking for is Will to actually have a system to say he got through something hard so that he can go through hard times at this new job. Composure, hard to actually see. We have a role play as part of our interview process. And in the role play, it's not about did you sell me on anything in the role play. It's actually the role play happens. Then we give you feedback right in the role play. And we see how you hear the feedback and adjust.
Ooh.
Not right. So it's your interview process is really uncovering those competencies you know will make or break an SDR success. Good question.
I really like the feedback aspect there. How can we as SDRs be more effective in actually being coached and changing our behavior? Really good question from Julian.
I'm going to, and I'm reading that. How can we as SDRs, so like at the role, be more effective? There's a technique called mirroring. It's an old technique. So as an SDR, reaffirming and asking the questions to get more clarity is epic. I think people are in this moment of enablement and being coached and do it this way. And then they leave the room. They're like, what did that person just say? I don't really know. Where's the guide? Versus stopping in the moment and actually saying, hey, pause. I don't know what you're talking about. Can you help me? Hey, so being really active and listening and getting clarity will expedite the coaching and changing your behavior.
That is a good
So
one. Oh, good. I was gonna say I have a selfish question here. When we were speaking about you spoke a lot about like radical candor. And you would say a lot of people describe your leadership style as intense. Could you elaborate a little bit on that for me? Because that's something I don't hear a lot.
So it was like a big book years ago. It was Radical Candor. It's a whole book. But people took it to the nth degree and they're like, I just need to be radically candid with you and radical feedback. But they're missing a component. Yeah, as part of that book, it's actually, there's a component that says you have to personally care. And if the person doesn't believe that you personally care about their success, you personally are invested in their success, there is no shot to be radically candid. And so there's two components to it. I'm genuinely curious. I mean, as Will said, he cold called me, and now we're to the point where we're having this conversation. But I know that Will has 2 kids. I get pictures. I knew when they were sick. Like, I genuinely care. I know where you live. I genuinely am curious. And I think my teams feel that. And if anybody's in the call, like they've experienced me, I do want to know about your life, because your life actually matters. And if you have a great life over here, you're probably going to bring that greatness to work. And so if I can help make that part great and I want to bring that greatness to work, I think it's all going to work out. And then when stuff's going awry, think about the most trusted person in your life. You know they care about you. And so when they tell you something feedback, they know that's just for the betterment of you, the betterment of the situation. It's not because there's an ulterior motive. It's not because they want bad things for you. It's like, oh, do that. So that's the big thing about probably why someone, I would say, intense, relentless. I'm not going to probably leave the room until we're all really honest so that we can actually get better. And that might be uncomfortable for some people once in a while.
Yeah. I think you're the first person who tells me that I need to wear something more than just a plain t-shirt and messy hair. So you are a very honest person. So one question that we have here is that the SDR role used to be very like in the trenches and boiling room. Let me grab 3 Celsiuses and knock out 1,000 dials, right? A lot of teams have gone fully remote, especially since 2020, and a lot of places are doing hybrid now. Like, what are some of the pros and cons to you specifically? And it's like, is there a best working setup for being an SDR or manager?
I think your majority will say it's about your talent. So it's more about your talent on what they need and what they're doing. So if your talent's never actually been in corporate America, put them together. That's a key like life moment is that I've had my first job, official corporate job, put them together. What great memories come from that. I'm going to pause too with the SDR world. Here's why I think I still stay in it. I think I've quantified myself is that usually SDRs are career changers, early talent, or looking to get in sales for the first time, right? But typically that comes with life events because sales is a financial game changer. If you're good at it, it changes your world financially, okay? So you get to be part of people's lives when they're buying a home, getting married, having kids, and to be able to support those big, huge milestones in their life, it's a really big deal. So when you think about, hey, what's the best setup and, cold call and hybrid and remote, you got to think about how's that person going to learn and how are we going to excel that experience. So I think someone who's never done it, come on in. You got to feel it. You got to see it. If you've done this for 5 years, 10 years, and you don't want that hand holding, that's okay. But I'm going to hold that person way more accountable than I'm holding the person that's never done it before. The person who's done it for 10 years, we are all coming in with, oh, you're more competent in some skills. We're going to own it. And you're going to have to show up and demonstrate those.
I love that one. So I know we're almost coming up here at time. Just looking through these questions, I think we'll have a one or two more, and then we'll start wrapping it up. We do have a question here, and I think this is definitely a good one. How do you help managers actually become better coaches? Because anyone can be a manager, but I think there is a pretty distinct difference between being a manager and a coach.
The coaching is take us out of it and you think of just sports because that's the most biggest analogy with coaches and players, right? And if you take us out of it, how do you listen to the coach? It's what the coach said on the field and it's what the coach does and leads by example. It's what the coach does when you're having a moment of vulnerability. It's really about all of that combined to help actually level up someone. If you're just telling someone call more, but you're not helping them on who to call, where to call, when to call, it just really changes that outlook. And I think that's where articulation of what good looks like and articulating how to do it. So as a coach, think about, we'll use baseball. If you're going to hit a ball, it's not just hit the bat and the ball together. It's where is your shoulders? Where is your arm? Where is your legs? Where's your feet? Like all of that matters. And it's the same when you're coaching an SDR. What's your tone? What's your mood? Have you smiled? What are you wearing? Well, what are you, all that matters in coaching. And so can you have that coaching conversation to get the outcome you want? Because I say this all the time, no SDR gets up and says, can't wait to be terrible at my job today. So you need to work with what you're, with the coaching where they're at.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you can't just say, oh, go make more dials. You really have to add context as to why to do specific things too. Last question here from Dom. Like, what does it look like when you actually need to empower like bottom performers?
Dom, I saw that question too, so I was like, yes, we'll pick that one. Good job, Dom. I'm actually going to be kind of on an interesting statement here. So think about bottom performers back to about the commitment and the competency. And this was probably one of the harder lessons I've learned. I have worked with SDRs and there's moments where it's that pivotal, crucial moment of, are you going to push through and figure this out or are you not? And there's a moment of reality, and it really struck me. So I'll tell the story. Is that I had a gentleman, he was less than probably 3 months in, and he wasn't doing the work. Okay. This gentleman was talented, and I was like, what is happening? And I got into a room with him, and he said something to me that was profound and changed my leadership style pretty quickly. He said, I didn't know how I would feel when I made the call. And I thought, what do you mean? Like, it's cold calling. It's it. What do you mean you didn't know how you felt? And the reality is that was the first time this individual was cold calling. It was the first time, and he didn't know how he'd feel. The heart races. Someone picks up and says hello. What am I going to say? I don't want to sound, silly. But what happened for me as a leader, and it comes down to that empowerment and upping their game, is there has to be that choice. And so I said, here's my ask. I said, I need you to hustle through this. I need you to break through the pain. Let's do it. Let's do the blitzes. Let's call. And then let's review in 30 days. And I just need to see your effort. If the effort was there, this gentleman went on to be one of the best SDRs I've seen, was so authentic, found his way, and now he is promoted to a different role, crushing it, and was phenomenal. But I do remember, I was like, oh, this person's having an internal thing happening to him because he didn't know how he'd feel. And so there's that moment. The other side, I've had someone say, I don't like this job, I hate it, but I got to pay rent. And I was like, oh, so do I. This isn't going to fit. And it wasn't a bad, he was great. I really enjoyed him. He did not want to be in sales. He found out through the process of sales development, he didn't want to be there. And so that's when I'm like, oh, I get it. How do we make this easier for you? How do we make this easier for you? Because he wasn't going to do it. He's not in sales today. He didn't like it. And he learned a very personal, valuable lesson. And it wasn't about empowering to be up. It was I don't like it. And having that moment too. So good question, Dom, because I think that's where you got to decide as leaders and as an SDR, is this the right fit for me? And I think that's hard sometimes for everybody.
Wow. That was a great answer. Even better than the question, Tom. Sadie, couple of things here. First, huge thank you. You've earned a lot of this wisdom, clearly in the trenches yourself, and thought deeply about several of these topics. For everyone who joined here, I see Dom, Riley, Park, Brian in the chat. Thank you for taking 30 to 40 minutes of your day just to learn more about a new skill, whether it's for yourself or for your team. And just for taking the time to get better at what you're already doing. It's not easy, so I applaud you guys for just doing it. We'll shoot out the recording after here. Everyone enjoy your weekend. Happy end of quarter. I know Monday is going to be a fun one. We're running 2 more sessions here in October or in November and December, all about building a cold calling culture, and I'll include that in the follow-up as well. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day and finish the month off strong. And you can find Sadie on LinkedIn.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Appreciate you.
Oh, wait, I don't know how to, what do we do? Oh.